Hey seniors, here's the lecture for today, Wednesday, October 30th. It's on elasticity and incentives. I'm going to go rather quick, but of course you can always pause this and back it up, which is different than my usual lectures. So pause as needed for yourself. So here's your essential question. How do changes in price influence the behaviors of consumers and producers? So now we're not just looking at supply and demand, but we're looking at those changes in prices, what it does for buyers, what it does for producers as well. These are your lesson goals. Overall, we're going to learn about how price impacts individual purchasing decisions. And then within that, we want to be able to describe how elasticity can be seen on a supply and demand curve, and discover how incentives affect economic behavior. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to do this one big overarching thing, and within it, it would include these two other smaller items. Oh, and one more, sorry. And finally, explore the ideas of price floors and price ceilings. So we're looking at elasticity, we're looking at incentives, and we're looking at price floors and price ceilings. Here are your vocabulary words. They'll be defined as we go. So produce, incentives, price ceiling, and price floor. So we'll describe those four words as we go. Here's a little chart. Pay attention here on the bottom. This is what it's showing. How do changes in price influence behaviors of consumers and producers? So we have these influences on behaviors and prices up here, and it includes elasticity can influence behaviors on prices, incentives can influence behaviors on prices, and price controls, those are ceilings, price ceilings and price floors, can also influence behaviors and prices. So elasticity. Elasticity is how much the quantity of a good demanded or supplied changes when its price changes. So when the price goes up, do people want more or less of the item, or does it stay the same? When the price goes down, do people want more or less of the item, and does it stay the same? So let's look at what this looks like. Inelastic demand. So when you have what's called inelastic demand, demand for an item is relatively inelastic if the quantity demanded changes very little when the price changes. So even when the price goes up, people still will buy a lot of it. Why is that? This is usually for goods that are considered needs. So remember, needs are things that we must have to survive. Shelter, food, water, clothing, those sorts of things. So when we need something, even if the price goes up, we're going to continue to buy it most likely. And it's demonstrated by a steep demand curve. So here's what the graph for an inelastic item would look like. It's got a very steep curve on that line because it's inelastic. So if I showed you this graph and asked if this is showing inelastic demand or elastic demand, you would say it has a steep curve, so it's most likely inelastic. When I'm saying inelastic and elastic, think of a rubber band. Rubber bands are elastic, right? They can stretch. If it's inelastic, it can't stretch very much. In other words, the demand is going to stay the same, right? So it's the rubber band's not getting bigger, it's keeping its same size with inelastic demand. Let's look at elastic demand. So keeping in that rubber band line, remember if it's elastic, if the rubber band is elastic, if I stretch it, it'll stretch really big and large, so it can change its shape. So demand for an item is relatively elastic if the quantity demanded changes significantly when the price changes. So when the price goes up, people don't want to buy it anymore. When the price goes down, a lot of people want to buy it. This occurs with goods that are wants. So think of like big screen, like really large TVs, for example. If the prices are low, the demand goes up really, really high compared to inelastic demand like milk. If milk is expensive, people are still going to buy a lot of it because it's a need. These are for wants. So elastic, when you hear elastic, think of wants. And it's just demonstrated by a less steep demand curve. So it looks like this. You can tell this line is not going up as quickly. So if I showed you this graph and said, do you think this is elastic or inelastic? You would say this is most likely elastic because the curve is not as steep on this one. Okay, so let's check in and make sure you're good. So first one, if the quantity demanded for a good changes drastically when the price changes, the good is relatively what? So when the price changes drastically, the quantity demanded changes drastically. What are we talking about there? Elastic or inelastic? Number two, If the quantity demanded of a good does not change much when the price changes, the good is relatively what? Elastic or inelastic? And the third one, based on this graph here on the right, the good being shown is most likely what? Elastic or inelastic? Okay, I'm going to tell you the answers to these. So if you haven't figured that out on your own, you may want to pause it right now. So for number one, if the quantity demanded of a good changes drastically when the price changes, the good is relatively elastic. It's changing with the price. So it's most likely also a want. If the quantity demanded of a good does not change much when the price changes, the good is relatively inelastic. The demand is going to stay the same. It's not going to stretch. And then that most likely means it's probably a need. And I'm looking over at this graph for number three, based on the graph, the good being shown as most likely. And I'm going to say it's most likely inelastic. Yeah, inelastic, because the slope is very steep. So the graph is showing an inelastic demand. Okay, inelastic supply. So let's flip over to the supply side of this. Supply of a good is relatively inelastic when the amount produced does not change much as the price changes. So even if the price is going up or down, we're not producing more or less of this. This usually occurs when the ability to produce more of a good is limited. So let's talk about, for example, oil. Okay, so even if we are producing, we can't really produce much more oil, right? There's a limited amount of oil on this planet, so we can't produce so much of it that we can drop the price drastically. Like, we're never going to see barrels of oil for $5 a barrel. It's never going to happen because there's a limited amount of that good, okay? So inelastic supply, we aren't going to produce more even if the price is going up. We can't produce more. We just can't. It's not possible. And it looks like this. So notice again, it's got a very sharp slope on it, a very steep slope for inelastic supply. Elastic supply. The supply of a good is relatively elastic when the amount produced changes greatly when the price changes. And it typically occurs with goods that have low production cost, are created using resources that are readily available. So these would be things that are more easily produced, for example, like pencils or cheap toys from China. Okay, so when the price is going up, when they're selling for a lot, the company can pick up production and produce even more of this particular item. And you can tell it on a graph because the slope is less steep on a graph for elastic supply. Okay, so I said turn and talk. You can if you want, or just answer these for yourself. So I want you to think of something that is a need. I want you to think of something that's a want. And then if the price of a need goes up, people tend to buy more or less of that item. And if the price of a want goes up, people tend to buy more or less of that item. And if I'm going to give you the answers right now, so I suggest you pause this if you haven't gotten there yourself. So an example of a need would be something like shelter or food. An example of a want would be something like an 80-something inch television or a new iPhone, for example. If the price of a need goes up, people tend to buy the same amount, right? Like, if I need it, like milk for my kids, I'm going to keep buying it even if the prices get expensive. No matter how expensive gas gets, I'm still buying gas because I need gas in my car. If the price of a want goes up, people tend to buy less. So if the new iPhone is just too expensive, I'm not going to get one. I don't have the money for that. Okay, incentives. So this is the second thing we're looking in here on things that impact prices. Incentives are actions that encourage or discourage people from doing something. So we can have positive and negative incentives. Oh, look, I'm ahead of myself. So either positive or negative, and incentives affect producers and consumers. So it goes both ways with this. So let me go back to this. So positive incentives, an example of a positive incentive could be, for example, for a consumer, that there are sales on items. That's a positive incentive. Or if you buy 9, you get the 10th one for free. That's a positive incentive. A negative incentive, maybe for producers, that if they aren't producing items with a certain amount of efficiency, the government is going to charge them a fee, for example. Or also negative incentives are like taxes on cigarettes, for example. Those are negative incentives to discourage people from buying cigarettes. Positive and negative incentives for consumers. So positive incentives encourage demand. So we're looking at the consumer side. So sales or discounts can be positive incentives, as I said previously. Negative incentives discourage demand. So the government adds taxes to some goods in order to increase the price. So that was my example with the cigarettes. So if an item is on sale, that is an incentive for us as the consumers to buy it. If there's taxes placed on an item by the government, that is a negative incentive for us to not buy it. It's discouraging that demand. Let's look at it on the producer side. So positive and negative incentives for producers. Producers also respond to incentives. So a positive incentive for producers can be the possibility of making more money. So if I produce more of this product, I'm going to make more money. A negative incentive for producers can be high production cost. So if I make more of these, it's going to cost me even more in production cost. Give me 1 second. I want to check and make sure this is still going. Okay, good. Because I know at a certain point it cuts off. Okay, so elasticity and incentives working together. So a good or service that is elastic will respond more to incentives. So if it is a want, it is more likely to respond to incentives. So for example, a sale on a game would increase demand. But a good or a service that is inelastic will respond less to incentives. So for example, a discount on salt will really not increase demand much. Nobody's going to go out and buy 20 things of salt because it's discounted. Well, not nobody, but very few people. Nobody has quite that much of a need for it, right? Like it is a need, salt is, but not that quantity, okay? And even if the price was to go up, people would still buy it because it is an inelastic good. So incentives work better with goods that are elastic than ones that are inelastic. So let's make sure that we understand. So on the left, we have incentives. On the right, we have examples. So number one, positive consumer incentive. What does that relate to over on the right? A, B, C, or D? Number two, positive producer incentive. What does that relate to? Number three, negative producer incentive. And number four, negative consumer incentive. And I'm going to give you the answers right now. So if you haven't gotten there yourself, you probably want to pause this. So number one, positive consumer incentive. So I'm looking for something that is positive, and I'm looking for something that impacts the consumer or the buyer. So price increases, not positive. Making more money, that's not on the consumer side. Sale prices, yes, absolutely. So one matches up with C, sale prices. Number two, positive producer incentives. So I'm looking for something that is good for the person that's making the product. Price increases, not good. Making more money. Yep, there it is. So 2 goes with B. Producers want to make more money. Number 3, negative producer incentives. So I'm looking for something that's bad for the person making the product, and that would be D, high manufacturing cost. If it's expensive to make, then it may not be a good idea for the producer to make that product. And number 4, negative consumer incentive. So that would be A, price increases. So if the prices are high on something, then it's going to discourage the consumer from buying that product. Okay, setting prices. In a free market system, prices are set by supply and demand. Ideally, prices bring supply and demand into equilibrium, and that's what we've been talking about with the last 2 lectures. But governments sometimes set minimum or maximum prices. This is the idea that we are not a pure free market system, right? We do have some government intervention. So here's that graph we've been looking at the past two lectures where supply and demand is meeting to meet equilibrium, but sometimes the government's going to come in and change that. So let's look at the first example of that, and that would be a price floor. So a price floor is the minimum price that can be placed on a good or service. So the cheapest that it can be. And governments set the price floor at the point above the equilibrium price. So it's going to be just above equilibrium. The quantity supplied will exceed the quantity demanded, and a surplus will result. So here's what it looks like. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example of this in a minute, and